Hi, Podheads, and welcome back to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. I'm your host for the day, Kylie Colwell.
And I'm Holly Spear.
You're Holly Spirit this week?
This week I'm Holly Spear. Yeah, Luke's pissed me off. No, I just can't remember. Oh, it is really hard.
But it's just us two, me and Halls, and we're just gonna jump right in. On April 22nd, 2016, residents of Pike County, Ohio, woke up to news that felt almost impossible to comprehend. 8 members of the Rhoden family had been murdered overnight across 4 separate crime scenes. For years, rumors and panic spread throughout the Appalachian community. People whispered about drug cartels, revenge killings, and family feuds. But the truth, when investigators finally uncovered it, was in some ways even more disturbing. This is the story of the Pike County Massacre.
Hmm. I don't know if I've heard of this one.
I remember kind of hearing about it when it happened, and then I hadn't heard anything about it since.
Interesting.
This might ring a bell for some people. So, Pike County sits in southern Ohio. It's super rural, filled with rolling hills, farmland, and tight knit communities. There's only about 28,000 people in this whole county. So, in places like this, everyone knows everyone, and this would become critical in this investigation. But our story is centered around the Rhoden family. There's a lot of people involved, like I said, so I'm going to do my best to try to explain the family tree as we go. I had to send Holly a family tree to follow because it was confusing for me, even, but I will post it on the blog post for this episode on our website. So, the first family member to be introduced is Bobby Jo Manley. On the morning of April 22nd, 2016, she showed up to the Rhoden property to feed the dogs and chickens like she did every morning. She noticed the property was abnormally quiet. It's a large property with several buildings, barns, sheds, etc., but it also held 3 different mobile homes where 10 different people lived, including Bobby Joe's sister, Dana Rhoden. Growing concerned, Bobby Joe entered the first trailer, and right there on the floor, surrounded by a large puddle of blood, was the body of Christopher Rhoden Sr., Dana's ex-husband. In one of the bedrooms, she found a second body, that of Gary Rhoden, who is Chris Sr.'s cousin. Through the shock, Bobby Joe called 911 at 7:51 a.m. and immediately called her brother James to help check on the other family members on the property. While James went to one trailer, Bobby Joe headed to the second and discovered 2 more bodies. Lying in bed were the bodies of Clarence Rhoden, who went by Frankie, and his fiancée, Hannah Gilley. More shockingly, also in the bed was the couple's 6-month-old, still alive, thank God, and also still alive and sleeping on the floor beside them was Frankie's 3-year-old from a previous relationship. Bobby Joe called police again, who were still on the way, to tell them that there was even more bodies. Meanwhile, brother James was at the third trailer to check on his sister Dana, where he found 3 more victims. He found his sister Dana, her 19-year-old daughter Hannah Rhoden, and 16-year-old son Chris Jr. So that it's not confusing, since we have 2 victims named Hannah when I'm talking about them, I'm just going to use their surnames as well. But to make it a bit more confusing, Hannah Rhoden had a child 4 days prior to the murder with Charlie Gilley, who is the brother of Hannah Gilley, her brother's fiance.
Okay.
Charlie doesn't come up again, so just fun fact. But back to what's going on. Beside Hannah Rhoden's body in her bed was said 4-day-old child, luckily also unharmed. Hannah Rhoden also had a 2-year-old daughter from a previous relationship who wasn't at home at the time of the murders. She was with her father for a few days while she recovered from giving birth. While officers are arriving on the scene to try to grapple with the carnage and size of this crime, another one of Chris Sr.'s cousins, Donald Stone, got concerned. Word was getting out that almost the entirety of the Rhoden family had been murdered, but one family member was MIA. He hadn't called after seeing the news, and he wasn't answering the phone. So Donald Stone drove to his house 8 miles away from that property to Piketon. There, he found his cousin and Chris Sr.'s brother, Kenneth Rhoden, shot to death in his own bed. By 1:30 p.m., the small county's investigators were dealing with 8 victims, all from the same family. The 8 victims were taken to the Hamilton County Coroner's Office in Cincinnati for autopsies straight away. Walking onto the scene, or scenes, officers thought originally that this could be a murder-suicide. One family member went around and murdered everyone in their family, except for the children, and then turned a gun on themselves. Somewhat logical thinking because it's thought that there was like a killer on the loose that targeted an entire family is a crazy thought. But the autopsies confirmed that every victim had been murdered. No one had committed suicide.
Wow.
And all but one of the victims were shot multiple times. The only victim with a single gunshot wound was Kenneth Rhoden, who had been shot once in the head through his eye. The victim with the most gunshot wounds was Chris Sr., who had 9, 5 of which were to his face. Chris Sr. also showed defensive wounds, making him likely the only one who was awake when he was murdered. The remaining victims, Chris Jr., Frankie, Dana, Gary, Hannah Rhoden, and Hannah Gilley, had several gunshot wounds to their head, execution style. It appeared that all the victims, except for Chris Sr., had been shot in their beds while they were asleep. Gary even had a muzzle stamp still in his forehead from the gun being pressed into it. So now authorities' worst nightmare was coming true. Someone who had murdered 8 people, execution style, in cold blood, was on the loose. All of the residents in the area were advised to stay indoors at night. The county basically went into lockdown as the news spread across the country that a manhunt was underway. In addition, any surviving members of the Rhoden family or their relatives were urged to take precaution, basically go into hiding. The surviving children that were found in the scene were either put into the custody of a surviving parent that wasn't there or were put into protective custody with the state. As investigators began trying to piece everything together, the 8 victims were laid to rest. Gary was the first to be buried on April 28th. Hannah Gilley was buried a few days later in Ohio, and on May 3rd, the remaining victims were buried together. Their funeral was heavy with security and police present, both to guard the remaining family members and also to canvass the people in attendance. Was anyone acting odd? Was anyone abnormally cheery? Did anyone say anything to warrant further questioning? Nothing stuck out. Dana Rhoden's dad, Leonard Manley, did give a public statement giving his theory. He said he knew immediately that whoever did this must have been well known to the family. It was obviously personal, but also Dana had 2 big protective dogs. They would bark if a stranger came onto the property, and they also would have attacked anyone they perceived as a threat, unless they knew them. There were no signs that the dogs attacked anyone, and no one nearby reported hearing the dogs bark. In fact, no one heard any gunshots that night at all.
Interesting. So what are they thinking, like a silencer or?
Yeah, they're thinking like assassin, ninja, silencer, the whole shebang. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, which is a mouthful, had their hands full, so they assembled a 100-member task force, joined by an additional 250 police officers, the FBI, and even the DEA to tackle this investigation. Let's go through what information they gathered in the early stages. Investigators determined that 32 shots were fired in total, all of which struck a victim. So, in other words, every single shot was precise, no stray bullets in the walls or ceiling, also no shell casings left behind. Investigators also determined that 3 different guns were used: a 39mm semi-automatic rifle, a .40 caliber semi-automatic pistol, and a .22 caliber pistol. Quickly, it was apparent that there was more than one shooter involved, maybe as many as 3. The killers were able to take out several victims in a single trailer all at the same time, likely by shooting them at the same time, so no one would wake up and fight back. Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine stated that the whole plot was planned, premeditated, and a sophisticated operation. It was carried out swiftly across 3 crime scenes with little to no evidence left behind. The only thing they assume taken from the homes were the victims' cell phones, which have never been located. Nothing else in the homes had been touched. The victims' cars and mobile homes were towed away from the properties and secured in a police warehouse in order to preserve potential evidence. That's smart to do. You got the home's literally a mobile home. You can take it to the police station.
Yeah, it's mobile. That's the point.
New benefit.
Yeah.
So, without much to go on, law enforcement relied on the public's help. Maybe they could shed a light as to what was going on. Maybe they knew of someone who had a problem with the Rhoden family. By May 12th, over 500 tips had been submitted, and over 120 people had been interviewed. One thing that kept coming up in these tips and interviews was a threat posted to Facebook 10 days before the murders. The threat said something along the lines of a, quote, "God, I can't stop thinking about the kid that hit me with his car. Every time I see a silver Tiburon, I get pumped and ready to beat his skull in. end quote.
Oh my.
Yeah. So police very quickly are like, okay, let's track this guy down. His name's Rusty Mongold, and he did confirm to with police. He posted that to Facebook, and the kid he was referencing that hit him with a car was 16-year-old Chris Rhoden Jr. Obviously, it was not a good look, but police were able to clear Rusty of everything. It was just a stupid incident he was upset about at the time. He had an alibi. He was nowhere near there. All good. Just unfortunate timing.
Yeah.
Police also detained and questioned 20-year-old Isaiah Jones early on in the investigation. Not exactly sure how his name came up, but whatever was said made police pull him over and detain him at gunpoint. Isaiah was a classmate and friend of the younger family members, and he was eventually cleared as well, same day. Police are getting names and they're crossing them off and basically crossing everyone off. So they look at this from a different angle based on what was found on the Rhoden property. While out there, investigators discovered evidence of other crimes. Attorney General DeWine confirmed to the press on April 25th that investigators located cannabis at all 3 crime scenes. Big whoop. But that's not the big crime I was talking about. Investigators also discovered an indoor grow house with approximately 200 marijuana plants. So a bit more than for personal use.
Yeah.
Unless you're like Snoop Dogg or something, I don't know.
The whole family, I don't know.
Also on the property was evidence of cockfighting and breeding chickens for this.
Okay.
That part, don't really agree with, but okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, investigators began to toss around the idea and brainstorm about some sort of, I don't know, maybe there's like some kind of gambling drama with cockfighting. Maybe someone owes someone money after losing a bet. They also looked into the possibility that a Mexican drug cartel was involved. Obviously, first instinct, Mexican drug cartel, if you have nobody else.
Of course.
Of course. They had a grow operation. The murders were sophisticated executions done by more than one person. Kind of makes sense. Maybe seems like a crazy idea. Why would a drug cartel be involved with a small family in the middle of nowhere, Ohio? But it's actually not unheard of. In both 2010 and in 2012, authorities in Pike County found and destroyed 2 other grow sites that were confirmed to be connected to cartels in Mexico. But the surviving family members and friends said this wasn't the case at all. They confirmed that Chris Sr. and Kenneth did in fact grow and sell marijuana, but it was nothing high volume. They sold to a few people they knew around town. They definitely were not connected to any sort of organization. After further deep dives into phone and bank records, authorities were able to conclusively confirm that that was true. No connections to cartels or gangs, nothing of the sort. Back to square one, things were quiet, at least publicly, until August of 2016, 4 months after the murders. On the 13th, everyone got their hopes up when KVIA TV reported that 2 men who were arrested for shooting a police officer were the main suspects in the Rhoden murders. Finally, something. Well, no. Attorney General DeWine and Sheriff Reeder had to quickly issue statements denying this. There was no link they knew of with these guys and the Rhoden murders. In fact, the authorities in New Mexico, where the guys were arrested, had never even contacted them. It turns out the guys were suspects in a separate shooting in the state, and the news team that reported all this had to retract the article and issue an apology. But it kind of reignited the case. Family and friends and neighbors were kind of fired up again, and they start pressing what's being done. On the 20th, Attorney General DeWine provided a bit more information. He confirmed that the leading theory is that the murderer or murderers were very familiar with the victims, their homes, and the area. He speculated that people in town knew more than what they were disclosing, and he also announced that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security were also now involved. So it's gotten quite big. 3 days later, 100 miles away, investigators got a call from Kentucky. They had something interesting to share and compare to. 2 weeks before the Rhoden Massacre, they had a very similar scene. On April 6, 2016, Charles Doug Eatman and his girlfriend Carolyn Ann Tomlinson were found shot to death in their bed, execution style. They were found by their 12-year-old daughter, by the way, and there was also another child in the home, unharmed. Neither child reported hearing any gunshots, arguments, or anything out of the norm that night. It wasn't just the method of the murders and leaving the children unharmed, but also the fact that Doug was a known drug dealer. So we have some similarities. Police in Ohio and Kentucky began to compare notes and kept an eye on each other's cases. But spoiler alert, the cases ended up not being connected. In 2021, Charles Eatman, who was Doug's uncle, was found guilty of 2 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Apparently, Charles had confessed to several people about killing his nephew over his drug selling business, and then killing his girlfriend Carolyn as to not leave any witnesses. But back to our case. In September of the same year, some disturbing reports came out. A local investigative news team reported that the mobile homes that were towed away to a warehouse weren't being properly guarded. They spent 6 weeks surveilling the warehouse and reported that there were no officers guarding it, no cameras, and the main gate to enter the property was unlocked and wide open. The Attorney General and the Sheriff called this report ludicrous and reassured everyone that the evidence is safe and preserved. They also said that there was enough physical evidence for prosecution, but people need to come forward to provide names to connect to this physical evidence. But it turns out investigators wouldn't need the public to provide names. The killers were right under their nose the entire time. So now we need to introduce you to another family, the Wagner family.
Family on family murder?
This is like the Hatfield and McCoys. So suspicion started to rise around the Wagners only a few days after the murders at a custody hearing. So as we know, Hannah Rhoden's 4-day-old was found alive in bed with her, but that she also had a 2-year-old daughter from a different father that was with him that night. The father is Jake Wagner. Well, only a few days after Hannah Rhoden was murdered, Jake Wagner and his whole family showed up to court with documents purportedly signed by Hannah Rhoden, stating that should anything happen to her, Jake Wagner would have full custody of their daughter. Nothing odd on its face, that's normal, but here's where the oddities start. First, Jake Wagner's grandmother, Rita Newcomb, was the notary on this document. Can't notarize for family members, that's a no-no. Second, everyone that knew Hannah Rhoden said she definitely would not have signed that. They even had Facebook messages and texts from Hannah showing quite the contrary, blatantly stating that under no circumstance would Jake have full custody of their daughter. Actually wrote out in one of her messages that she would rather die than give up custody. Hannah Rhoden and Jake Wagner's relationship was not good, if you couldn't tell. The two actually met and started dating when he was 18 and she was only 13.
Oh, dating. So grooming.
Yes, everything but dating.
Yeah. Because you can't date a 13-year-old.
So the couple broke up after an argument, and Hannah Rhoden had to call her dad to come get her because Jake allegedly choked her during this argument. Not looking like a great guy.
Nope.
Police are hearing all about this and decide to look into Jake, but there is a problem. As soon as Jake was granted full custody of their daughter, he and his whole family, brother, parents, I think grandparents even, they packed up everything, sold everything, and moved to Alaska. Not suspicious at all.
Yeah. Pack up your stuff and move to Alaska. Okay.
Over a year after the murders, and with nothing else to do, investigators decided they needed more evidence on Jake Wagner. On May 12th, 2017, SWAT raided 2 properties that were owned by the Wagners at the time of the murders. But they stated that they weren't there to look for a suspect, they were only there to look for evidence. I guess not much was found, because in June, police were once again asking for people to come forward with information. This time, they sought people who knew the Wagner family and knew about their vehicles, firearms, and/or ammunition, to be precise. Then, in an odd twist, the Wagner family moved back to Pike County from Alaska, and this time Jake returned with a new wife. Not sure how old she was, but I guess they thought that the fury and investigation had died down, and they kind of tried to settle right back in. All the men in the family, Jake, his brother George, and their dad Billy, all started working for the same trucking company. Surprise, surprise, though, because officers placed listening devices in their trucks.
Good.
And placed a wiretap on all their phones, hoping someone would say something. And they did just that. On November 13th, 2018, Attorney General DeWine announced that arrests had been made. Multiple arrests, 6 in total. Jake Wagner was arrested with his brother George during a traffic stop. Their dad, Billy, was arrested in Kentucky. Mom, Angela, was arrested at their home. And both of their grandmas were arrested. Whole family.
Wow. Even the grannies.
Oh, we'll get into what the grannies did. So Rita Newcomb was charged with perjury, obstruction of justice, and forgery. She was the grandma whose notary stamp was used on that custody agreement that was signed by Hannah Rhoden, giving Jake Wagner custody of their daughter. As you might have guessed it, the signature was forged. Rita pleaded guilty and was given 5 years supervision plus a small fine. The other grandmother, Frederica Wagner, was charged with perjury and obstruction of justice as well, but her charges ended up being dismissed. Now to the juicy part, and we'll start with Jake Wagner. He was charged with, is a long list, 8 counts of aggravated murder, felony conspiracy, 4 counts of aggravated burglary, unlawful possession of dangerous ordnance, tampering with evidence, forgery, unauthorized use of property, interception of wire and oral communications, obstruction of justice, engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, and lastly, unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. Just to reiterate the fact that he was 18 when he started dating Hannah Rhoden, who was 13. So they really threw the book at him. Facing the death penalty, now 26-year-old Jake made a deal. He would plead guilty to all the charges, tell investigators everything, testify against his other family members, in exchange the death penalty would be dropped for everyone involved. It wasn't that the prosecution doubted the strength of their evidence and arguments, but this was a way better deal. They'll learn everything and won't need to take this massive case through a trial that could last months or even years. And by the way, the remaining Rhoden family members, they signed off on this plea deal. They were A-okay with it. They just wanted to finally know what happened for a fact. So what's the story Jake told? We'll get into it. It all started 4 months prior to the murders when the Wagner family learned that Hannah Rhoden was pregnant again. Then they started to conspire to get custody of the daughter, and the whole family began to plan. Mom Angela bought everyone the same tennis shoes from Walmart in different sizes than what they usually wore.
Wow.
You'll see they have obviously very well planned out, but all the stuff I'm going to tell you that they were buying, they kept the receipts for all of this stuff.
So you planned it out, you went through all that trouble, and you kept the receipt.
Yeah, or purchased with their credit card. Yeah.
Well, you got halfway there.
Dad, Billy, bought a new truck with cash to drive that night, something that no one else would recognize as theirs.
Oh my gosh, they bought a whole new vehicle?
He registered it at the DMV.
Perfect. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Someone bought a suppressor so the gunshots wouldn't be heard. They also bought the parts to make a second one, along with brass catcher pouches, something I had never heard of.
Is that like to collect the shell casings?
Yes. Hence why none was found at the scene.
Makes sense.
In the days leading up to the murders, they purchased a cell phone jamming device so that none of the victims could call for help.
This is wild.
So thought out.
Cell phone jammers. I don't even like for people to know that exists.
I just had the thought, I was like, is that even like, can you even buy that online? I'm scared to even look it up.
Yeah. Pretend you didn't hear this, everybody.
Sons, Jake and George, also dyed their hair. You'll see why. It makes absolutely no sense for them to have even done that. But that night, on April 21st, 2016, Dad, Billy Wagner, went to go see Chris Sr. with a ruse of a lucrative drug deal that he was planning. And hiding out in that new truck in the driveway were Jake and George, armed and waiting for the signal. Once they got the signal, the carnage began, and the trio moved from home to home, murdering Chris Sr., Dana, Kenneth, Gary, Hannah Rhoden, Frankie, and Hannah Gilly, and Chris Jr. Jake admitted to shooting and killing 5 of the 8 victims himself. Afterwards, the murder weapons were placed in buckets and filled in with concrete. And then, on Father's Day, they used those concrete buckets to make anchors and gifted them to another family member. And then they stole these quote-unquote anchors from that family member and then just went and dropped them in a pond anyways.
Okay.
But Jake was able to lead investigators straight to them, where the guns were slowly chipped out of. The markings on the inside of the barrels of the guns were later matched to the bullets found in the victims. The whole plot, the whole reasoning, was solely to get custody of the daughter Jake shared with Hannah Rhoden.
Seriously?
He murdered 8 people.
Wow.
And it's not like she's keeping the child away from him. He literally had their daughter when these murders happened.
Wow.
In September of 2021, Jake Wagner was sentenced to 8 consecutive life sentences with the possibility of parole after 32 years, which seems a little early to me, but I highly doubt that would be granted. In September the following year, his brother George was convicted of 8 counts of aggravated murder, tampering with evidence, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But in June of 2024, George Wagner filed an appeal alleging that several jurors had personal connections to the victims. Small town. It's going to happen. This appeal is still pending in the courts. Mom, Angela Wagner, pled guilty to all charges in exchange for the 8 murder charges being dismissed. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison for conspiracy to commit aggravated murder, aggravated burglary, tampering with evidence, possession of firearms, forgery, obstruction of justice, and engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. And for the final Wagner family member, Dad Billy, his trial date actually has not been set yet. There were several delays early on, thanks to COVID, and the trial court judge took the death penalty off the table, I guess thinking that would make things move along a little faster, but it had the opposite effect. The prosecution then fought to reverse that decision, and the appeals court granted it. Death penalty back on. And then Billy and his legal team filed an appeal on top of that, and the matter is still pending with the Supreme Court of Ohio. So, not until the Ohio Supreme Court makes a ruling on the death penalty will a trial date even be set. Billy Wagner has just been sitting in jail for almost 8 years, which is honestly fine with me.
Yeah.
For more than 2 years, an entire community lived in fear of monsters they couldn't see. People locked their doors, slept with lights on, and wondered how 8 people could be executed so methodically in the middle of the night without anyone hearing a thing. This wasn't about money, it wasn't about drugs, it wasn't about some massive criminal enterprise. An entire family was wiped out because another family believed they had the right to decide who deserved to raise the child. And in their minds, murder became a solution. The Pike County Massacre remains one of the most devastating family annihilations in modern American history, one of the biggest investigations in Ohio history, and not just because of the number of victims, but because of the chilling level of planning behind it. Still, justice doesn't really mean closure in a case like this. There's no sentence harsh enough to undo the damage, and there's no conviction that brings back Dana, Chris Sr., Kenneth, Gary, Frankie, Hannah Gilly, or Chris Jr. And that is the Pike County Massacre, or the Rhoden family massacre.
First of all, I can't believe that they did that because they thought they would get custody of the child. Second of all, the amount of planning that went into that is wild. Also, the stupidity and the planning, like both of those combined, very wild.
No, this is like some like Wild West family feud.
Yeah. And you had to kill every family member? You had to kill them all?
You had to kill her 16-year-old brother?
Or what?
I mean, I know it sounds bad, but even if you had just killed Hannah Rhoden, you are the father of that child.
Right.
Biologically and legally, you would have had custody of the child. Unless you were in some way unfit, which clearly maybe that's.
Yeah, clearly you are, yeah. But then it wouldn't go to you anyways if you're unfit. So you're dumb. You're dumb.
None of you have custody of that child. Congrats.
Yeah. Well, that was crazy. Little family feud.
All right. I'm gonna jump into overtime.
Let's do it.
It's funny. Kate came up with this prompt and she's not here today. And she's gonna be so mad that we're gonna do it without her, but I don't care.
Perfect.
She told us to list things that we think are overrated or underrated.
Okay, let's hear yours because I prepped mine last week and now I have forgotten. So it's going to be fresh. Improv. What's yours?
Off the dome. Okay, overrated is something I like, but I do think it's overrated. The Chili's triple dipper.
Overrated?
I think overrated.
I don't know. I'm starting to agree.
It's good. Yeah. Okay, I'll order it. But you guys are hyping it up so much. Like it's mozzarella sticks and chicken fingers.
Yeah. And I will say also, I have gotten the mozzarella sticks. It's a lot of cheese. I
It's
understand that could be a controversial statement, but like it's almost like an amount that's like you can't. How do you work with that? You know what I'm saying?
the ratio is off.
It's way off, and to the point where you're like, God, I'm choking on cheese.
It's I feel like I'm eating some 5-year-old slime.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. No, it's a no for me. Yeah.
Underrated candles.
Underrated?
Underrated. I know like me, you, Kate, like we love our candles, have candles going all the time. I feel like no one else I know has candles burning like that. You know what? I know someone specifically that doesn't like candles at all.
See, I don't like that.
Don't like that.
I almost wake up and light a candle. Like it's almost like a coffee, light my candle kind of situation. Start the day off right.
No, during the day you got like a nice like sea breeze or like a linen one when I'm cleaning.
Hmm.
At
Hmm.
night, something a little darker,
A little moody.
woodsy.
Yeah. Kate used to make candles, fun fact. It seems like everything we say, we're like, oh yeah, Kate used to be that. Kate used to do that. But she did. She used to make candles. They were really good. I don't know why she stopped. I guess it was the kids.
Yeah, thanks, Smelly, because those were good candles.
Yeah, those were my favorite.
Okay, overrated. A lot of these are food related. Raising canes. There's not one hint of
Yeah.
seasoning on those chicken. You're relying entirely on the sauce.
Yeah, on that cane sauce.
You get the sauce is fine. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Chick-fil-A chicken nugget doesn't require sauce.
that's true. But you know what? I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna say, for me personally, Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets are overrated. Not Chick-fil-A in general. Love a spicy chicken sandwich. Love the sides, the mac and cheese there, the soup. It's all good. I appreciate Chick-fil-A. The chicken nuggets themselves are overrated.
Yeah, not enough crunch on meat for me.
I don't like this. I don't like the sweetness in
Mm,
the batter. That's why I like a spicy chicken.
spicy chicken. Do you like the chicken minis? Because they're with like the sweet, like,
I don't.
well,
I really don't. I know. That's very controversial.
I understand it though.
You get where I'm coming from.
You do. Okay, underrated. When the left turn lane has its own signal, like light signal, like its own arrow.
Yes, I love when I get to go to one of those.
It makes me feel so much better.
It makes me feel seen,
Appreciated.
appreciated, validated, all the dateds. Yeah.
Okay, overrated. Lululemon for the price.
For the price. And I will agree with you on this one because I have found some other brands that I like more that are similar price points, but I feel like are better quality. Vori.
And that I can put in the dryer.
And then I can put in the dryer. Yeah. Yeah. They do seem to lose their shape. But okay, I think that they used to be made better because I have some leggings that I had in high school and they still have their original shape. But then the ones I have gotten recently within the past couple of years, it seems like they start to like lose their structure within like, I don't know, like a year of wash.
Yeah, they don't cinch like they used to.
They don't cinch, they don't, they don't tight where they're supposed to tight.
No, if I'm wearing skin tight leggings, I want them to basically be Spanx.
Yeah. And I have tried the Spanx leggings. That's one thing. Spanx clothing is also overrated. I bought some clothes from them one time and the hem just completely unraveled. Just like completely unraveled. And their pants are like kind of expensive. I never got any replacement. Spanx, if you're listening, that's on you, boo.
And this is why we buy Skims now.
Yeah, underrated Skims. Love Skims. Love the colors. Love the options.
Underrated. More food related. Ordering a bunch of different plates and appetizers specifically and just eating family style at restaurants.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you.
I'm
I
an
want
app.
to taste what everyone has. I want to sample. I want a lazy Susan in the middle of the table. I want everybody to just get a big portion.
Yes, and like honestly, most of these restaurants, the only things I'm interested in are the appetizers.
The appetizers are the sides. I'm a big sides person. Very underrated sides. I will not order a pasta dish, even if I want a pasta dish, because I want sides more. And with pasta dishes, you usually don't get a side.
No, I want a variety.
Yeah.
I want a couple bites of everything.
Yeah, I want a nibble.
Overrated cake.
Yes. Icing for me. Icing overrated.
Fondant is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, if you could, did you know that you can buy that shit in Hobby Lobby, like in a package that just sits in the back of the store and people put that on a cake?
Like unrefrigerated.
Uh-huh.
Ew.
Yeah. In the baking section. It's in packets like this.
I remember the first and last time I tried a cake with fondant on it. big Cake Boss fan at the time, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be so good. I was like, this is this is erasers.
I mean, I think it's actually plastic.
It's gotta be.
This is so bad. It's our food's so bad for us. I can't. I was talking to somebody from another country and they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, like somebody's outside selling avocados. Do you have that in your country?" And I was like, "No, baby, we have ice cream trucks. We don't sell fresh produce. We sell ice cream. High fructose corn syrup, chilled."
Red 40 and IV drip.
Yeah. I was like, that sounds refreshing. You guys have like someone selling avocados down your road. Like it was like a bell, like ringing it, fresh avocados. I was like, no, we don't have that here. Mm-mm.
Oh. Okay, one more underrated. Koozies.
See, I swear, I don't know. I never reach for a koozie. I'm not the kind of person that's gonna have a koozie with me, remember to bring it, remember to use it.
I mean, I've got several in the car, but if I know I'm going to be out drinking a canned beverage as I am now, I do not want to be touching cold, wet metal all day long.
You know, what it says about you to me is that you plan ahead and you like to be comfortable, and I respect that.
There's nothing I value more in my life than comfort.
That be true. That be true. But also, you have to plan ahead for that kind of stuff, and I respect that.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. This was a lot better than Kate's would have been because, guys, I heard a rumor that Kate's was like 4 pages. So, and she would have drugged me for all of the things that I like.
Underrated, water. Overrated, Red Bull.
I would have gotten a drag show here.
I will say, listeners, we Holly is currently drinking a water, and so I sent Kate a picture of Holly drinking water, and Kate responded with, "How do we know it's actually water?"
I knew she was gonna say that. I knew she would say that. And I'm gonna show everybody right now. I'm so glad that it is actually water because I poured Red Bull and other drinks so Kate would think they're water. It's water. I'm gonna pour it out on my MacBook. It's water.
Confirmed, guys, water.
Confirmed. I'm glad you asked, actually. It's a great time for me to be telling the truth. I usually am a little dirty little liar.
It'd be funny if it was just Red Bull and you had me like Photoshop it to look like water for the
Oh
video.
my God. And I would too. You guys would never know. Really funny. Yeah,
No.
that's one of mine. Water, overrated. Had to say it. Had to say it. No taste, no flavor, no pizzazz. Very boring. Very boring. We all know it's true.
I'm not even going to try to argue with you.
Needed to survive. I get it. Very boring. It's a fact. We all know it is.
Do you put like little like Mios in your water?
Yeah, I do. Little, I'll even do a liquid IV. I'll do anything. I'll carbonate it just to just to give me something.
Life, sustenance.
Yeah. Give me a little feeling.
We'll see you guys next week with another episode. Kate better be back because I think it'll be her episode.
Yeah. You'll see Kate next week.
Make sure like, subscribe, comment, follow all the things. Check us out on overmydeadpod.com and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.